I think the next one on is Trinav. Could you please unmute him?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Gantos. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to interact with you today. My name is Trinav. I'm 11 years old and I love reading books. They're always a part of my life. What I would like to know from you today is not about books though. It is that you do so many activities: writing, workshops, book events, visiting schools, and you wear so many hats. But I am a fan of your glasses. I really like them. I am curious about whether they hide a story. Do they?
The glasses. Well, first off, let me just say, you've presented a really wonderful question. You're a good public speaker. Thank you. And public speaking is a great skill. So continue with that. Now, as for the glasses, you know what they hide? So these are triplets. The reason I have such big glasses is I have close up, middle range, and far away, all in one. So it's a continuous stream. So I don't know. I like them big. I have a new pair that I haven't put the lenses in yet, but are even bigger. And I'm going to get, and they're chunkier, and they've got a lot of character, and they're bigger than my face, I think. And so I think I'll get those next. Is that okay?
Yes, that would be actually really nice.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I really do. But as for what you were saying before, and pointing out that I do a lot of different things with books. I read books, I write books, I go to schools, I teach. I was professor of creative writing and literature. So a lot of different things, but yet they're all part of the same hand, right? The writing of the book, the teaching of books, the reading of books. It's all of a kind. They're all interrelated, and I like that, and I find it stimulating. Whenever I go to schools, like even now, whenever I go to schools and speak, I'm always discovering something new. I'm always asked interesting questions, which make me think in ways I've never asked those questions of myself. And so working with young writers like yourself that are clever and smart and curious and have an interest in literature and writing, it causes me to grow myself. So every time I'm with a group, I always feel like I've expanded myself as well. So thank you so much for that question.
Right, thank you. Yes, I totally love your glasses as well. And I have watched some of your interviews. I love the chunky look. It gives lots of personality. Not that you like it otherwise, but it's an awesome look. Totally love it. Okay, we've got Lina next, I believe. Would you please unmute Lina?
Hi, Mr. Jack Gantos. My name is Naina. I study in grade 6 in the Sri Ram School. I'm 11 years old and love to read books as it takes me into the author's imagination combined with mine, and that is something truly amazing. I would like to ask you that you went to 10 schools in 12 years. From the person who wrote this book needs help to 12 rejections, then publication number 1. Is that the recipe for being an author?
Well, thank you for your question. I know you gave it a lot of thought. Now let's look at the recipe, okay? Because like every recipe, you have to stir, right? You have to stir it, right? You get everything in the pot, and then you have to cook it. And so let's look at the pieces. So take the 10 schools, right? The travel. What do you learn from that? Well, you learn to get along with other people. You learn how to share who you are. You learn how to listen to other people. You learn how to be the outsider and look and study the culture that's new to you. And then you try and be an insider. You try to be part of that culture. You move. You're going in, you're coming out. You're being intimate and you're being observant at the same time. So you're kind of getting, even though you don't know it sometimes as a kid, you're getting these skills for interacting, the skill of making yourself a part of the culture, the skill of standing back from the culture and judging it and looking at it. So that's one of the things that happened. Still, I wasn't really thinking about being a writer. Not until I really got a little bit older. Now, I held this up before, this journal. This is my old journal. Now, I probably have 250 journals, 300 journals. I don't know how many journals I have. This is my journal now. This is where I write. And this is what it looks like. I don't know if you could read it, but that's what it looks like. So I use and I do what I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I used a fountain pen. This is the pen I use, right here. And it's got this little nib, got a sharp little nib on it right there. And that's what I use. Where did I get that? When I was a kid. And I kept it, and I have a lot of pens and I have a lot of notebooks. And so over those years of change, I was observing, and I always entered a situation as an outsider, and I always left as an insider. And then I would be an outsider at a new school, and then I'd be an insider. That gives you that kind of rotation, right? You develop a sense of objectivity and intimacy at the same time. And when you read a good story, you know how the reader is taking you from a big space into a small space, from a big idea into a personal feeling. And so you get good at moving around. Now, the next part came when I decided, what is it that I wanted to do? What did I want to do in life? It's a really hard question, isn't it? And so the one thing that I asked myself is, what do I love? And what do I think I'm good at? I loved books. I loved reading. Literature meant so much to me. Literature changed my life, improved my life, expanded on me. And I kept those journals as a kid. So I went in that direction. I went to college for creative writing, and I published my first book while I was an undergraduate in college. And when I came out, the school I went to, they hired me to be a teacher right away, and I started publishing more books. And so I just kept up with it. So in a very funny way, I've been doing the same thing ever since I was a kid. Just, having a good idea, writing it down. Getting a good idea, writing it down. Seeing something interesting, writing it down. You know what it takes? It just takes the doing of it. You're smart enough. You're emotional enough. You're clever enough. You've got energy enough. You're curious enough. But all of that alone will not make you a writer unless you pick up the pen and write it down. That's the job. Or the computer, whatever. But you have to write it down. It can't just be the knowing of it. So thank you.
Wonderful.
For that.
Thank you for the sage advice.
Yeah.
And we have Manit next.
Hello, Mr. Jack Gantos, sir. I
Could you
am
unmute?
Manit Lamba, and I am studying 6th grade in the Sri Ram school. So I had a question for you.
Yes.
So my question was, you get scared, you fight, you flee, or you freeze. But a certain Jack would bleed through his nose or bleed tears through his eyes. Was it a real condition or an author's license?
Oh, such a good question. Well thought through. I give you an A plus for the question. Now, you know I'm an author, and you know when you look at life gives you half of the story, but then it's just never enough. And so part of the author's job is to improve on life itself, make it a little bit more interesting, decorate it, bring some more emotion to it, bring a little bit more action to it, give it shape, beginning, middle, and end. So if I'm bleeding through my nose, which I used to get nosebleeds, but then I exaggerated a little bit. You know, if I said to you, oh, I have a nosebleed problem, and I just bleed just one drop, just one little drop, you'd go, that's not really a problem. But if I said I had a nosebleed and I woke up and I was covered with blood, and my pillow had blood, and the floor was blood, and I sneezed and the ceiling had blood on it, then you would go, that's a problem. So you, as the writer, you have to take maybe one small detail and sometimes make it bigger, make it blossom in order to have the impact you need. And also, there's something called the rule of three. And the rule of three is very important. So if I said, one day in my entire life, I had one nosebleed, you'd go, well, that could happen, you know, not a big deal. But if I said, well, I had two, you go, well, yeah. And if I said, but I had 3 nosebleeds in a row, then you go, well, that's a problem. So the rule of 3 is, you know, when you say, I'm really smart, but, you know, you have to prove it, right? You say, well, I'm good at math, I'm good at English, I'm really clever at history, you know, then everyone goes, man, you are so smart, right? But if you just go, well, you know, I failed everything, but I'm good at gymnastics, you know, they're going, yeah, it's not that smart. So it's the rule of 3. You have to convince the reader. It's like when I say, I love food, you know, you got to really eat a lot in the story. Got to really be eating food. So that's it. You know, that it's not a big trick, but it's just a matter of convincing the reader. I'm convinced that you're really smart. So you already got me with the rule of 3.
There, Manit, you have a confession from Mr. Gantos about using the author's license. So now you know. I think we've got Sharanya coming up next. So could you please unmute Sharanya?
Hello, my name is Sharanya and I'm 9 years old. So, here's my question. What might have been enough to etch your name into history? 2 or 3 enough to claim your place in the pantheon, but you have done enough to end up casting a shadow enough to rival a boogeyman. A legacy few can dream of, fewer can emulate. So, are you content?
Oh. Am I content? Content. That is a very big word, content. It just means so much. Am I content? I've written picture books. I've written books of short stories. I keep journals. I've written novels for young people, middle grade, high school, adults. Am I content? Yes and no. Both. You know, when you're really good at something and you try and be better, that's what I'm always thinking about. How can I improve? Not only how can I improve, but what can I do that's different? What can I do that challenges me? And so I'm always looking not to exactly repeat myself, but to use the skills I have and then maybe push it just a little bit farther. Add some new features to it, make it better in a certain way. Now, certain things I have not done well at all. Now, when I write my books, I'm always writing from a man's or a boy's point of view, because I am. But I do not think I've written a really good book from a woman's point of view or a girl's point of view. So see, I have my weak spots over here that I have not tackled yet, that I have not conquered yet. And quite frankly, I'm afraid of doing it. Because I don't think I'm going to do a good job, and then I'm just going to be ripped to shreds by the critics. So I think I will stay away from them. So thank you for that question. You're quite fascinating question.
Well, like they say, where you are content, there you stand. So I guess contentment is not a very great idea if you want to progress. And there's still so much left to write about, Jack, isn't there?
Every day.
Every
day. You just never can keep up with it. The world is so curious. Your life is so full of emotions and thoughts that you're always thinking, well, I'm just trying to do the best I can with what I can. But absolutely. But the one thing that I think that sort of ties all of this together is there's a difference between talking about writing and writing itself. There's a difference between the fantasy of walking into a bookstore and seeing your book and actually writing the book. So I think what we have to do as writers, young writers, any age writer, is to get that central habit, the writing habit, whether you're typing, whether you're writing by hand, but to start that journal, some sort of activity. And you say to yourself, start small. I've talked to students all the time, and they go, oh, Mr. Gantos, I'm going to write for 2 hours every day, 2 hours every night. And I always say to them, maybe you need to start a little slower there. Maybe you set the clock for 10 minutes this week. Just write for 10 minutes. Next week, 15 minutes. Next week, 20 minutes a day, and build it up. Think of writing as like weightlifting, where you have to practice, it's like physical. And you cannot go out and pick up heavy weights until you learn how to pick up smaller weights. And the same thing with writing. Build the habit, 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. When I open my journal and I look into it and I see something like this, which I showed you. So my journal, and this is my personal journal, this is not so much my writing journal as it is how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking about my life. And so I always make sure that I get a full page, just one page. At the end of the year, you have 365 pages. And then it's a significant amount. And that's what happens if you just write one paragraph a day. At the end of the year, you actually have a novel. It's amazing. It's the consistency. So think of yourself as a marathoner, not a sprinter, but a marathoner. That's what a writer generally is. Poets, they're more sprinters.
Wow.
Storytellers, novelists, we're marathoners.
Thank you. That's very inspirational. And thank you so much. Yes. Okay, could you unmute Abhilash next?
Hi.
Yeah, I'm Ann. I've read your books, about Joey Pigza, the kid with attention problems. As the series progresses, Joey calms down a little with it, bit by bit, like as you said, a marathoner. I was wondering whether the presence of the blind girl, Olivia, is what causes him to mellow out more. And is that what happens at your home?
Huh. Great question. First off, the question is born from the reading. So first the reading comes, then the question blossoms out of the reading. To be specific in answering your question, I would say this, that for Joey, Joey's always been the problem, right? Joey's too active, or Joey overthinks, or Joey just makes mistakes all the time. But now with Olivia is the one with the big issues, and Joey is now put in the position of being the stable one, the one who has to make room for her, to try and help her out. So instead of him being helped, now he's turned it around and he has to help. So it stretches Joey out a lot. And I think it gives me the opportunity when I'm writing about Joey to see him both ways. He's not just a child out of control that always needs attention. He's a child that is also aware of other people's problems and tries to help them too. So now he has empathy for other people. And when you're writing a book or writing a character, not only do we have self-involvement, but we also have empathy. So you look into yourself and then you look into other people. And that is something that I think human beings need, is empathy, feeling how other people feel. But a good story also needs it. So thank you. That was a very, very well thought out question. I like Olivia, by the way. I think she's wild. But I love that she gives Joey a hard time.
Yes, Olivia, the stick bearer. So, yes.
Gives him a good smack.
Yeah, she's quite a stick bearer.